Sometimes the last person you'd expect to change your life is the one you've only known from a distance. When Ethan unexpectedly crossed paths with his reserved CEO, Adrian, inside a gay club, one surprising encounter blurred the line between work and personal life, leading them both on a journey of trust, vulnerability, and love.
I thought I knew exactly who my boss was, until the night I saw him standing beneath neon lights in a gay club, looking straight into my eyes like he'd been expecting me all along. My name is Ethan Brooks, and for the last 3 years I'd worked as a junior graphic designer at Walker Creative, one of Chicago's fastest-growing branding firms. Everyone knew our CEO, Adrian Walker, as the man who never smiled, never wasted words, and never blurred the line between business and personal life. He arrived every morning at exactly 7:45 a.m., carried the same black leather briefcase, drank black coffee without sugar, and somehow made an entire conference room fall silent with a single glance. Rumors followed him everywhere, but facts never did. No one knew if he dated. No one knew where he lived. Some people even joked he slept in his office because the lights on the top floor stayed on long after midnight. As for me, I kept my head down, met my deadlines, and avoided becoming the kind of employee a CEO would ever remember. That Friday night, everything changed because my best friend Tyler refused to accept another excuse. He insisted I needed one night away from deadlines, client revisions, and my tiny apartment. Before I realized what was happening, we were standing outside one of the city's most popular gay clubs, music pulsing through the walls and colored lights spilling across the sidewalk. I almost turned around. Crowded places had never been my thing. Tyler laughed, dragged me inside, and disappeared into the crowd within minutes, leaving me alone with a sparkling soda and no idea what to do next. I wandered toward the quieter side of the room, trying not to look completely out of place, when someone across the dance floor caught my attention. The tailored charcoal jacket, the perfectly straight posture, the unmistakable profile. My heart nearly stopped. Adrian Walker, my boss. He wasn't surrounded by executives or investors. He wasn't wearing the cold expression he carried every Monday morning. He was talking with another man, relaxed enough to laugh softly at something I couldn't hear. For a second, I wondered if I was imagining the whole thing. Then Adrian slowly turned his head. Our eyes met across the room. Every instinct told me to leave before he recognized me, but it was already too late. Instead of pretending not to notice, Adrian excused himself from the conversation, slipped through the crowd with calm, deliberate steps, and walked directly toward me. Each second felt impossibly longer than the last. I couldn't move, couldn't breathe. When he finally stopped only a few feet away, his calm gray eyes never left mine. Then, with the faintest hint of a smile that no one at the office had ever seen, he quietly said, "I was beginning to think you weren't coming." For several long seconds, I simply stared at him, convinced I had misunderstood what he had said. My mind raced through every possible explanation. Maybe he had mistaken me for someone else. Maybe the flashing lights and loud music had distorted his words. But Adrian Walker did not look confused. He looked completely certain. His calm expression never changed as he waited, almost as if he expected me to answer a question that had been hanging between us for years. "I think you have the wrong person," I finally managed to say, my voice barely louder than the music surrounding us. A faint smile appeared again, subtle enough that I wondered if I had imagined it. "Do I?" he asked quietly. Before I could respond, Tyler suddenly appeared beside me with an apologetic grin. "Ethan, I have been looking everywhere for you." The moment Tyler noticed Adrian standing beside me, the color drained from his face. "Wait, you are..." He stopped himself before finishing the sentence. Adrian gave him a polite nod. "Good evening." Tyler looked at me, silently asking 100 questions with one terrified expression. I could only shrug because I was just as confused. Adrian glanced toward the entrance, then back at me. "Enjoy your evening, Ethan. We will see each other on Monday." With that, he walked away as calmly as he had arrived, disappearing into the crowd until the flashing lights swallowed him completely. Tyler grabbed my arm the second Adrian was out of sight. Please tell me that was not your boss. I sighed. Unfortunately, it was. The ride home felt unreal. I replayed every second of the conversation, especially those strange words. I was beginning to think you were not coming. Coming where? Why would he say that? By the time Monday morning arrived, I had almost convinced myself the entire encounter had been nothing more than an awkward coincidence. Walker Creative looked exactly as it always did. Employees hurried through the lobby carrying coffee cups and laptops. The receptionist greeted everyone with the same cheerful smile. Nothing seemed different except me. I stepped into the morning meeting determined to act normal. Adrian entered precisely at 7:45, dressed in another perfectly tailored dark suit, carrying the same black leather briefcase. His face revealed nothing from Friday night. He greeted the room with a simple good morning, before reviewing project deadlines with his usual calm precision. If I had never seen him outside the office, I would have believed he had spent the entire weekend working. Then, as the meeting ended and everyone stood to leave, Adrian closed his folder and spoke one sentence that froze me in place. "Mr. Brooks, please remain. I would like to discuss a new assignment with you." Every head in the conference room slowly turned toward me, and judging by the surprised expressions around the table, I was not the only person wondering why the chief executive officer had suddenly taken an interest in the quiet designer nobody ever seemed to notice. The conference room emptied one chair at a time until only Adrian and I remained. The silence that followed felt heavier than the Monday morning meeting itself. I stood beside the polished oak table, wondering if I had somehow made a mistake that human resources had not discovered yet. Adrian calmly closed the conference room door before returning to his seat. He opened a slim folder, glanced at a few pages, and then looked directly at me. "Please sit down, Ethan." Hearing him use my first name again unsettled me far more than I wanted to admit. I carefully took the chair across from him, keeping my hands folded together to hide how nervous I felt. "Your work on the Harrison campaign caught my attention," he said. "Your concepts solved problems that more experienced designers overlooked." I blinked in surprise. I had submitted those designs nearly 3 months earlier and assumed they had disappeared into the endless approval process. "Thank you, sir," I replied. Adrian gave a slight shake of his head. "I am assembling a confidential branding project for a new client. I want a very small team, and I want you to be part of it." For a moment I thought I had misheard him. Designers with twice my experience had spent years hoping for an opportunity like this. "Why me?" The question escaped before I could stop it. Adrian did not answer immediately. Instead, he studied me with the same calm expression he had worn at the club. "Because talent is easier to find than honesty," he finally said. "I believe you possess both." His words lingered in my mind long after the meeting ended. By lunchtime, the entire office seemed to know I had been selected for the confidential project. Curious glances followed me through the hallways. A few co-workers congratulated me politely, while others seemed quietly puzzled. Even Tyler texted me asking whether I had secretly won the lottery. The first project meeting was scheduled for 6 o'clock that evening after everyone else had gone home. As sunset painted the Chicago skyline gold outside the office windows, the building gradually emptied until only a handful of lights remained on our floor. Adrian arrived carrying 2 cups of coffee instead of 1. Without saying anything, he placed one beside my laptop. "No sugar," he said. "You never add any." I looked at the cup in surprise because I had never once shared coffee with him. In fact, I usually grabbed mine from the cafe across the street before work. Somehow, he knew exactly how I drank it. Before I could ask how, his office phone vibrated. He glanced at the screen for only a second before his expression changed almost imperceptibly. The warmth disappeared from his eyes, replaced by sharp concentration. He declined the call without answering, closed the blinds overlooking the city, and quietly said, "Ethan, there is something about this project that you need to understand. From this moment forward, trust. Almost no one inside this building, including people you think you know well." The words echoed in my mind long after Adrian returned his attention to the presentation on the large monitor. Trust almost no one inside this building. It sounded less like advice and more like a warning. During the next 2 weeks, our confidential project consumed nearly every evening. We stayed long after the rest of the employees had gone home, reviewing concepts, refining campaigns, and preparing a strategy for a client whose name Adrian still refused to reveal. At first, I assumed he was simply being cautious because of a competitive market. Then I started noticing small details that no one else seemed to see. Every night before we began working, Adrian carefully locked a drawer inside his office and placed a folder into a secure cabinet requiring both a key card and a fingerprint. Whenever an email arrived with the project name in the subject line, he read it on a separate laptop that was never connected to the company's main network. Once, I casually asked whether all executive projects were handled this way. He looked at me for a second before quietly answering, "Only the ones someone is trying to steal." His response made me laugh nervously, expecting him to smile. He never did. Instead, he changed the subject and continued discussing color palettes as though nothing unusual had been said. Yet despite the tension surrounding the project, another side of Adrian slowly emerged whenever the office became quiet. He no longer felt like the distant executive who intimidated everyone during morning meetings. Sometimes he asked about my parents in Wisconsin or the little coffee shop where I spent Saturday mornings sketching. He remembered tiny details I barely recalled mentioning. When I admitted I had once dreamed of illustrating children's books, he surprised me by saying, "Dreams postponed are not always dreams abandoned." It was difficult to reconcile that thoughtful man with the CEO whose reputation for emotional distance filled every hallway in the company. One rainy Thursday evening, our meeting ended earlier than expected. As we walked toward the parking garage, I noticed Adrian stopped beside the security desk to greet the elderly night guard by name. They spoke for several minutes about the guard's granddaughter, who had recently received a college scholarship. Adrian congratulated him with genuine warmth and quietly slipped an envelope into his hand before walking away. The guard thanked him with tears in his eyes. Adrian pretended not to notice. He simply wished the man a pleasant evening and continued toward the elevators. I realized then that the version of Adrian everyone believed they knew inside the office was only part of the truth. The colder he appeared in public, the more kindness he seemed to hide when no one was watching. As the elevator doors opened, his phone vibrated again with the same unknown number from several nights earlier. This time he answered. He listened without speaking, his expression growing unexpectedly serious before he ended the call and turned toward me. "Ethan," he said quietly, "someone accessed our secure files exactly 12 minutes ago, and according to the system logs, the person responsible used your employee credentials." The accusation hit me so suddenly that I forgot how to breathe. "That cannot be right," I whispered, staring at Adrian as the elevator doors slowly closed behind us. "I have never accessed anything outside the files you shared with me." He held my gaze for several silent seconds before giving a small nod. "I know." His answer surprised me even more than the accusation itself. "You believe me?" He pressed the button for the executive floor instead of the parking garage. "If I believed you were responsible, you would not be standing beside me right now." We returned to his office, where he unlocked the secure cabinet and powered on the isolated laptop. Within minutes, rows of security logs filled the screen. My employee identification number appeared exactly where Adrian had said it would, showing an access request that had happened while we were both reviewing presentation drafts together. The timestamp alone proved I could not have been in two places at once. Adrian leaned back in his chair and folded his hands. "Someone wanted me to see your name." A chill ran down my spine. "Then somebody inside the company is framing me." "That is the conclusion I reached several days ago," he replied calmly. "Tonight simply confirmed it." I looked at him in disbelief. "Several days ago?" Adrian opened another encrypted folder and turned the monitor toward me. There were reports documenting unusual login attempts, copied files, and suspicious activity stretching back almost 2 months. Every incident had been carefully recorded. "You knew this was happening before you selected me for the project?" "Yes." "Then why involve me at all?" For the first time since I had met him, Adrian hesitated before answering. "Because the person behind this expected me to trust the wrong people." He paused. "Instead, I chose someone who had never asked me for anything. His words settled over the room with unexpected weight. For years I had believed I was invisible inside Walker Creative. Yet somehow Adrian had noticed not only my work but also my character. We worked late into the night comparing security records, searching for patterns hidden inside ordinary office routines. Gradually, a single detail emerged. Every unauthorized access happened shortly after someone scheduled a company-wide meeting or social event. Moments when most employees left their desks unattended. It was a clever system because nobody questioned a computer that already appeared to belong to its owner. As midnight approached, Adrian closed the laptop and suggested we finally call it a night. The city outside glowed beneath fresh rain, reflecting thousands of lights across the streets below. We rode the elevator down together in comfortable silence. When we reached the lobby, I noticed a familiar figure standing just outside the revolving doors. It was Tyler. The instant he saw me walking beside Adrian, his expression changed from relief to unmistakable panic. Before I could wave, he quickly turned away, climbed into a waiting car, and disappeared into the traffic. Adrian watched the taillights fade into the distance before quietly saying, "That is the third time this week your friend has been outside this building after business hours, and I do not think it is a coincidence." Sleep never came that night. I kept replaying Adrian's final sentence over and over in my mind. Tyler had been my closest friend since my first week at Walker Creative. He was the one who convinced me to leave my previous job, the one who dragged me out of my apartment whenever I worked too much, and the one who had taken me to the club where everything changed. The idea that he could somehow be connected to the security breach felt impossible. By Tuesday morning, I had convinced myself Adrian was simply being cautious. I walked into the office determined to prove my friend had nothing to hide. Tyler greeted me with his usual easy smile, but something felt different. He immediately asked whether I had stayed late with Adrian again. Before, he would have joked about overtime or complained about deadlines. Now his questions were oddly specific. "How late did you leave?" he asked casually. "Was anyone else still there?" I answered as vaguely as I could, remembering Adrian's warning. Tyler nodded, smiled, and quickly changed the subject, but I noticed him glancing toward the executive floor more than once throughout the morning. That afternoon Adrian invited me into his office without sending a calendar request, something he had begun doing to avoid creating digital records that others could monitor. He handed me a printed document instead of emailing it. "I need you to review these concepts at home tonight," he said quietly. "Do not photograph them. Do not upload them anywhere. Bring them back tomorrow morning." I accepted the folder without asking questions. As I reached the door, Adrian spoke again. "There is one more thing." I turned around. "The document you are carrying is not the real proposal." I frowned in confusion. "It is a decoy," he explained. "If someone attempts to copy it before tomorrow morning, we will know exactly how information is leaving this company." The realization sent a wave of uneasiness through me. We were no longer waiting for the person responsible to make a mistake. Adrian was setting a trap. I slipped the folder into my backpack and left the office as naturally as possible. During the train ride home, I resisted every temptation to open it, keeping Adrian's instructions in mind. Later that evening, my phone buzzed with an unexpected message from Tyler. He asked if he could stop by because he wanted to borrow my drawing tablet for a freelance project. The request seemed harmless until I remembered that I had never once told him I planned to work from home that night. I stared at the message for several long seconds before another notification appeared. This one came from Adrian. Contained only 6 words. "Do not let anyone inside tonight." My thumb hovered over the screen for several seconds before I locked the phone without replying to either message. The silence inside my apartment suddenly felt much louder than the traffic outside my window. Adrian had never asked me to trust him blindly, yet every instinct told me his warning was not based on suspicion alone. I switched off the living room lights, placed the backpack containing the decoy folder on my dining table where it could easily be seen from the entrance, and waited. 20 minutes later, someone knocked on my door. 3 light taps, exactly the way Tyler always did. "Ethan, it is me," he called through the door with his usual relaxed tone. I was already nearby, so I figured I would save you the drive tomorrow. I walked quietly toward the door but stopped before unlocking it. Through the peephole, Tyler looked perfectly normal, smiling while holding 2 paper cups of coffee. If I had not received Adrian's message, I never would have questioned anything. I am not feeling well, I answered. Can we do it another day? There was a brief pause before Tyler laughed softly. Come on. I will only be here for 5 minutes. I apologized again and remained where I was. Another few seconds passed. Then I heard footsteps moving away from the door. I waited another 10 minutes before carefully looking outside. The hallway was empty. Relief washed over me until my phone vibrated again. This time it was Adrian. Look through your kitchen window. My apartment overlooked the rear parking lot. I cautiously pulled the curtain aside just enough to see outside. Tyler had not left. He was standing beside his car, talking to a man I had never seen before. They both looked toward my building several times before the stranger pointed toward the entrance. My heartbeat quickened. A few moments later they drove away together. I immediately called Adrian. He answered on the first ring. You saw them? He asked calmly. Yes, I replied. Who was the other man? A private investigator hired by one of our competitors. My grip tightened around the phone. Then Tyler really is involved. Adrian was quiet for a moment before answering. I do not believe he started this willingly. I think someone convinced him he was helping expose corruption inside the company. That possibility hurt almost more than betrayal itself. Tyler had always believed he was protecting people. If someone had manipulated that instinct, he could have walked straight into something far bigger than he understood. Early the next morning, I arrived at the office carrying the untouched decoy folder exactly as instructed. Adrian met me in his office with an expression I had never seen before. It was not satisfaction. It was disappointment. He turned his monitor toward me, displaying security footage recorded just after midnight. Someone had entered my workstation using an authorized employee access card while I was asleep at home. The person wore a baseball cap pulled low over his face. But when he looked up for just 1 second, I recognized him instantly. It was not Tyler. It was Daniel Mercer, the company's trusted chief operating officer and Adrian's closest executive partner for nearly 10 years. For a long moment, I simply stared at the frozen image on Adrian's monitor, hoping my eyes were somehow deceiving me. Daniel Mercer had been with Walker Creative almost from the beginning. Employees admired him because he was approachable, generous with advice, and fiercely loyal to the company. He and Adrian were often described as 2 halves of the same leadership team. If Daniel was truly behind the security breach, then this had never been about a single stolen project. It had been carefully planned from the inside for months. Adrian closed the video without saying a word. The disappointment on his face revealed far more than anger ever could. He helped build this company, Adrian said quietly. I trusted him with every major decision I have made for nearly a decade. I understood then that this betrayal was deeply personal. Before I could respond, my phone vibrated. Tyler was calling. Adrian looked at the screen and gave a slight nod. Answer it. I placed the call on speaker. Tyler sounded exhausted. Ethan, we need to talk. Right now. There are things I should have told you weeks ago. I remained silent. Tyler continued before I could speak. I know you think I lied to you, and maybe I did, but you have to believe me. I never wanted to hurt you. Daniel told me the company was hiding financial fraud. He said he needed proof before innocent people lost their jobs. He promised nobody would get blamed. Adrian quietly recorded every word without interrupting. Tyler's voice became unsteady. Yesterday I realized something was wrong. Daniel asked me to find out whether you had taken confidential files home. That was never about protecting the company. It was about protecting himself. Adrian finally leaned closer to the phone. Tyler, this is Adrian Walker. Complete silence filled the line. I suspected you had been manipulated. Adrian continued calmly. If you are willing to tell the truth, I can help you. But you must stop following Daniel's instructions immediately. Tyler exhaled slowly. I still have the storage key he gave me. He rented a private office downtown where he keeps backup drives and paperwork. I have never opened anything, but I know where it is. Adrian and I exchanged a quick glance. Everything we needed to expose the truth might already exist inside that office. Less than an hour later, accompanied by the company's legal advisor and an independent digital security specialist, we arrived at the address Tyler had provided. The office was almost empty except for filing cabinets, computer equipment, and neatly labeled archive boxes. The investigators carefully documented every item before examining the computers. Within minutes, they discovered dozens of copied company files, confidential client proposals, and email records showing negotiations with a rival marketing firm. Tyler lowered his head in disbelief as the evidence appeared one document after another. He whispered, "I thought I was helping save the company." Adrian placed a reassuring hand on his shoulder. "You were deceived, Tyler. The important thing is that you chose to tell the truth before it was too late." Just as the investigators prepared to secure the final hard drive, one of them looked up with a puzzled expression and opened a newly recovered email that had been scheduled for automatic delivery at exactly 9 o'clock that morning. The subject line contained only 5 chilling words. "Adrian already knows everything." The investigator opened the email while everyone in the room watched in complete silence. The message itself was surprisingly short. "If you are reading this, then my plan has failed. Adrian, you were always smarter than I gave you credit for. I only regret trusting ambition more than friendship." Attached beneath the message were signed agreements, financial records, and a complete timeline documenting months of confidential information being sold to a competing firm without Walker Creative's knowledge. Daniel had apparently scheduled the email weeks earlier, preparing for the possibility that everything would eventually come to light. The evidence was overwhelming. Over the following days, the company's legal team handled the investigation while independent auditors reviewed every affected project. Clients were informed honestly, security systems were rebuilt, and the board publicly praised the employees who had protected the firm's integrity. Tyler accepted responsibility for his mistakes, fully cooperated with the investigation, and, after everything was reviewed, was given the opportunity to rebuild the trust he had almost lost. Watching him apologize with genuine sincerity reminded me that good people could still make terrible decisions when someone learned exactly how to manipulate their fears. Life inside Walker Creative slowly returned to normal, although nothing truly felt the same. One Friday evening, several weeks after the investigation officially ended, Adrian asked whether I had time for a short meeting after work. Instead of leading me toward the executive conference room, he walked outside, crossed the street, and continued several blocks through downtown Chicago until we stopped in front of a familiar building glowing beneath colorful neon lights. I laughed softly the moment I recognized it. "You planned this?" I asked. Adrian nodded with the smallest smile. "I thought we should return to the place where everything began." We stepped inside, and the music, laughter, and bright lights felt completely different from the first night I had been there. Fear had been replaced by peace. We found a quiet table near the back, exactly where I had once stood alone, wondering whether I belonged. Adrian looked at me with the same calm gray eyes that had quietly changed my life. "There is something I never explained," he said. "The night we first met here, I told you I thought you were coming." I smiled. "I have wondered about that ever since." He looked down for a brief moment before answering. "I had noticed you long before that evening. Not because you tried to impress anyone, but because you never did. Every person around me wanted something from me except you. When I saw you standing here that night, I finally believed I had a chance to know the real Ethan Brooks instead of another employee who only saw a title. I felt every anxious question I had carried for weeks quietly disappear. This time, I was the one who took a single step forward instead of waiting for him to cross the distance between us." I smiled and asked, "Would you like to dance?" Adrian's answer came with the warmest smile I had ever seen from him. "I have been hoping you would ask." As we walked together toward the dance floor, I realized that the most important decision either of us had made was never about protecting a company or uncovering a secret. It was choosing to trust someone when every reason in the world said it would be easier not to.
The story of Ethan and Adrian may have come to an end, but countless other stories are still unfolding around us, each becoming a unique piece of life's colourful mosaic. Every encounter has the power to change us in ways we never expect. Should Ethan have kept his distance after discovering his boss's secret? Mixing personal feelings with professional boundaries is never easy, and sometimes love comes with difficult choices that deserve careful thought. Don't judge people by the roles they play or the image they present to the world. Behind every title, every smile, or every silence is a human being with hopes, fears, and a story waiting to be understood. Stay open-minded, be kind, and never be afraid to be your authentic self. Thank you for choosing to spend your time with Blue Fox BL. We truly appreciate your support. If you're listening tonight, we wish you a peaceful night and a restful sleep. And if you're listening while working or going about your day, we wish you a wonderful day filled with happiness, success, and many good things ahead.